We hope this broadcast finds you healthy and safe. Thank you for tuning in to MSK's video pop-up series, where we discuss late-breaking news and issues that affect your business during these uncertain times. Today, we'll be hearing from Sue Ross, MSK's chairwoman of both the international trade and cybersecurity practices, and as of 8 weeks ago, co-chair of MSK's COVID response team. That team has recently shifted its focus towards being a reopening rapid response team. In light of the fast pace and conflict-ridden announcements coming from various governmental sources, Sue will be addressing what business leaders need to consider as they approach various stages of reopening their businesses. Now, over to you, Sue.
Thank you very much, Doug. Good afternoon to everyone. As Doug said, this is what we hope will be a first in a series of these video pop-ups, or as we're calling them, our Reopen Rapid Response Team. We're going to be covering the topic from really three perspectives, because these are the three that everybody's trying to deal with: what you need to do with your facilities, the impact on your employees, and of course the impact on your visitors. The first topic I want to raise, because it really sort of sets the stage for everything, is what does your insurance cover? I'm not talking here about the business interruption insurance, which is a whole other discussion, but really more about your liability insurance and other forms of insurance that you have to make sure that you know what the risk is you need to manage. Most insurance policies do not cover anything that's pandemic or virus related. So that tends to put a very significant potential risk on everybody's plate. I am not an insurance coverage lawyer. I know just enough to be dangerous, but we will be covering this topic in later sessions that we're going to present. I do want to make clear that we're not talking here necessarily about employees, because they are typically covered by workers' comp, but more the question of visitors you have to your facilities, and then also the very real possibility that someone that works for you could give the virus to either a family member or some third party, perhaps a friend, somebody like that. And the potential headaches that can cause, because if there's no policy, then whatever the defense is comes out of your own pocket. And so what we're really going to talk about as we go through all of these sessions is ways in which you can hopefully minimize and or avoid the problems rather than try to defend them. I'm going to talk for the rest of today's session about the shelter-in-place orders. You heard Doug say the conflicting orders, and they are very definitely conflicting. There is no clear federal policy. We do have some federal guidance. We have public health officials that naturally want to be quite cautious, and the administration that quite naturally wants to get the economy restarted. So what has transpired is we've ended up in a situation where the individual states are issuing these orders. Sometimes it goes so far as there's the state, the county, and the city. Sometimes they play nice together, but more often than not, there are conflicts. So we're going to talk a little bit about the situation in 4 particular cities. We picked these 4 cities, frankly, because a lot of our entertainment clients are there, and they've been particularly interested in these locations. But as I go through these, fill in the blank of the city you're in, or the cities that your operations are in, and these kinds of broad situations are pretty typical. So let me start with probably the easiest situation, and I'm going to use, for this purpose, the illustration of Nashville as a city and Tennessee as a state. The two of them got together. They lifted their orders, and they lifted them in the way that we're more typically seeing, which is there are not limitations per se, but you're expected to follow the CDC guidance and the recommendations of the local health authorities. So that means things like social distancing, washing one's hands, making facilities available to do that, disinfecting, and so on. The other end of the extreme, if I could call it that, is the situation between Georgia and Atlanta. There are those who will say that it was really more a matter that the governor is of one party and the mayor is of another. We can speculate about that, but what we've ended up with is Georgia has said we're reopening at a state level, and the mayor of Atlanta has said, nah, not so fast. Now, we do know that the city of Atlanta yesterday released a new order, and we're taking a careful look at that to see whether it solves the dilemma. But unless it does, what you have is a wide open state of Georgia and a closed city of Atlanta, at least closed to the extent that the workers are not deemed essential. And so at that point, you have the dilemma of which one do you follow? And I don't frankly know too many clients that have been willing to say, I'm either going to go to court and challenge the order, or I'm going to be the poster child to see what happens. But if you have an appetite for that kind of risk, it's certainly a reasonable decision to make. But for the most part, what clients are doing across the board is looking at what does the order require in the location that I'm in? Do we qualify as an essential business? And even if we do, are we following the public health and safety recommendations? Two other examples I want to use again to illustrate sort of where things are at. The first one is New York. Now, in the case of New York, the shelter-in-place orders have been extended to June 13. We know that for sure. We know that New York, like every other location, has used the distinction of essential versus non-essential. The advantage with New York is that for the most part, the governor seems to be calling the shots. We haven't really seen a situation, at least not to this point, where the county or the city has issued an order that's contradictory, or frankly, in many cases, we haven't even seen any orders from the city or the county. We know that New York is in what's being called phase one, that essential industries continue. There's been a handful of other industries that have been identified as, if not essential, certainly those that can reopen. There are certainly also from the governor indications of certain parts of the state that can reopen. And here too, we've seen this should be done with consideration given to the CDC and the public health recommendations. We know that the governor of New York has also said that there are some criteria he's going to look at to satisfy himself whether further steps at reopening should take place, and they include whether the infection rate is sufficiently low, not slow. The healthcare system has the capacity to absorb a potential resurgence in new cases. Diagnostic testing capacity is sufficiently high to detect and isolate new cases, and robust contact tracing capacity is in place to help prevent the spread of the virus. We also know that in the case of New York, the state, because of the geography, because of where workers are located and so on, is trying to coordinate its efforts with New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Delaware. The general press is making clear there's a lot of perhaps disagreement about beaches and things like that. But I want to go back for just one moment because two of the criteria that the governor mentioned had to do with testing and contact tracing, both of which are very important, both of which we will deal with in depth in later sessions. I want to spend the rest of what little time I have left talking about California and the very real challenge we've had here, which has probably been the most out of the jurisdictions we've looked at, because you have state orders, county orders, and city orders. I'm going to focus in Southern California and Los Angeles just for purposes of illustration. There has been discussion about a regional approach with Washington and Oregon. We haven't really seen anything to speak of. We have in California the state order, and again, just focusing for a minute on the entertainment industry, there's a broad definition of entertainment to include the studios, the industry broadly, and other establishments that are related to the entertainment industry. There is not a comparable provision in the federal definition, which was issued by CISO, which is the part of the Department of Homeland Security that deals with critical infrastructure. The city of Los Angeles identified a definition for news, not for entertainment generally, that is newspapers, television news, radio, magazine, podcast, and journalism. Complete confusion because initially the county said television, not television news, and then changed its definition. The metrics that the county and city of Los Angeles have articulated are pretty much the same as we saw from the governor with slightly different words. The latest word is that the city and the county, at least the county has said it's going to extend the shelter-in-place orders to July 31. We'll see if the city follows suit. So far, they've been pretty much hand in glove. I want to close talking just very quickly about how you go about reconciling all of these conflicting orders. And the answer is, first of all, obviously, figure out which location you're in. Make sure that you have the most recent orders. Make sure that you stay on top of it. Obviously, we're able to assist. There are lots of other law firms that are doing the same thing. There are lots of consultants that are doing the same thing. But however you're doing it, you need to make sure that you have those most recent orders. You can't pick and choose. I got a question at a webinar the other day that said, well, we like the order from the county just north of us because that's where our employees are located. That's not how this works. You really do have to figure out where you are located and what governs where your facility is, and then accommodate that to make sure that you recognize where your employees are coming from. All of these orders across the board are recommending compliance, as I said before, with the CDC and public health guidances. So please make sure you do that. And then also, to the extent that any of your industries have best practices that they've published, you want to make sure that you're following those. And in the end, this is really all about making sure you understand what the risk is and that you manage it as best as you can. And so, Doug, I'm out of time. It's back to you.
Thank you for joining MSK's video pop-up series today. These have been intentionally designed to be brief. None of them will run longer than 10 minutes, so we clearly will dive in is to provide you with a little bit of flavor of some of the complexities and moving parts on all of this in the coming days and weeks as many businesses around the country attempt to figure out how to navigate the process of reopening. So again, intentionally brief. If you have questions and want to dive deeper, and this particular topic area is one of interest to you and where you need more information, Sue's email address is on the screen for you there at skr@msk.com. We also have other people on the Reopen Rapid Response team that cover various other topic areas under this general heading of COVID and reopening, who can also be reached at reopen@msk.com. So keep an eye out for additional pop-up videos in the coming days and weeks. And more importantly, please continue to remain healthy, remain strong, and remain hopeful. Thank you and goodbye.